Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is one of the most conflicting games in the franchise. A lot of people think the game is one of the best, while a lot of people think it's one of the worst. Personally, I think the bar cannot be set any lower than Sister Location. Good golly, that game stinks. But in all things seriousness, I do get to see the arguments of both sides. However, I feel as if we need to dissect the game in order to get a concrete opinion. So, join me as we learn how FNAF 2 expanded the original, what it brought, and why I believe it to be one of the best in the franchise. Before we begin, I have an announcement to make. I have a goal for YouTube now. At 100 subs, I'll make a Bill Cipher character analysis. If you are at all interested in this video, subscribe. Of course, you don't have to, it's not a must, but it would really make my day. With that out of the way, let's dive right in. Starting off, we have to explain how the game works. Obviously, you can't have a game without the gameplay. Otherwise, it's just this is absolutely peak gaming. FNAF, FNAF 2 relatively functions the same way FNAF 1 does. You switch between being in the office and in your cameras. However, instead of the doors, you now have the mask to block out animatronics. Yes, that's what the mask is! A lot of people have gripes with the mask, as they see it as it being used too much, to which I'll say, yeah. However, I think it makes up for it in the way it's utilized. Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, and Mangle are all blocked by the mask, but their mechanics are distinct enough to qualify as separate in my eyes. I'll go over everyone's mechanics on my thoughts on them in a bit, but before that, I wanted to discuss the cameras. Although I don't mind the mask being relied on more, I feel like the cameras are very underutilized. In FNAF 1, you don't need it for 3/4 of the animatronics, but it's an absolute must for Freddy. In FNAF 2, the only reason you'll need the cameras is to wind up the music box for the puppet. It disappoints me as a newly introduced mechanic in FNAF 2 is that you can use your flashlight in the cameras. However, since you're on the puppet cam all the time, you have no reason to waste the flashlight's battery, which half the time you forget there even is a battery. Back in my day, you used a crank to power the flashlight. Or it had a cool vacuum to suck up ghosts. I wish there was a way this could be utilized more. Maybe you could use it to prevent an animatronic from coming to your office. Now, I can't talk about the gameplay without the animatronics, so let's do just that. Animatronics. FNAF 2 has the biggest roster in any of the games, with a total of 10, not counting the secret characters. One sec. My thoughts on all of them vary from to one of the best in the franchise. Since we were just talking about her, let's start off with the puppet. The puppet is this tall and lanky animatronic with noodly arms. The design of the puppet always reminded me of Slenderman, and the similar color scheme and shape. Wait a minute. Tall figure with black body and white head. Is this why I had a fear of the white pumpkin as a kid? This makes sense now. I think the design of the puppet is great. However, I'm not a fan of on how you deal with her. See, the way you deal with her with the puppet is the previously stated music box. I've already stated why I dislike this, but gosh darn is that jump scare stressful. The next animatronic you'll probably face is Toy Bonnie. I don't have much to say on him. All you have to do is block him is wear the mask. The animation's cool. I like Toy Chica, however. No one just forgets the first time they see her ominously staring at you. I also love how her design changes when she leaves the stage. I also like her jump scare. It does a good job getting you off guard. Now, at first, my thoughts on Toy Freddy were just like most people. He was too much of a joke to be scary. However, once I played FNAF 2 for the channel, yeah, I still think Toy Freddy's a joke, but seeing him just stand there waiting to strike is unnerving. He's also the first of the blackout mechanic. Basically, you have a certain amount of time to put the mask on, or else you die. I love the idea of giving you a quick amount of time before you get jump scared. However, I think too many animatronics use this. Mangle may be one of my favorite animatronics. The story of this animatronic being pulled apart but never put back together always creeped me out. And seeing Mangle hang on walls in the cameras is delightfully disturbing. On top of that, Mangle can appear in both the right event and office hall. Her jump scare involves chomping you while on the ceiling, which has implications. But all in all, I like Mangle. Now, the internet's gonna rake me across the coal for this more or spicy than IKEA's Swedish meatballs, but I like the way how Balloon Boy works. Yeah, his constant sound effects are annoying, but having an animatronic disable one of your abilities rather than killing you is an idea I quite like. It makes the game more difficult, and having Balloon Boy being the one blocked by the masks makes it more tolerable to deal with Withered Freddy. Speaking of him, I think he's neat. Instead of being blocked by the mask like every single animatronic, Foxy's blocked off by the flashlight. It's a great mechanic that switches up the gameplay well, and with the addition of Balloon Boy, really spices up gameplay. Also, and really stay with me here, guys. This is on the test. I like his design. Speaking of design, you know who has some awesome character design? Withered Bonnie and Withered Chica. My own opinions on them are relatively the same, so I'll just group them in one section. I think their designs are some of the best in the franchise, as they are really just terrifying. In fact, I liked Withered Bonnie so much that I made him part of my channel banner. You can also use the block mechanic to block them, which seeing them impatiently waiting to strike is delightfully horrifying. I'm running out of synonyms for spooky, guys. I'm gonna have to use Google now. Withered Freddy is the animatronic I have the most nitpicks with. For one, his jump scare looks like he's Pac-Man, and it's not that scary, and more silly than anything. Another is, out of all the animatronics, I feel like he's the one who shouldn't be blocked by the mask, as he is the mask. Instead of, what if we flip the camera instead of the mask? Not only would it make sense, but it would also give us more time to wind the music box. All in all, the cast of FNAF 2 is my favorite crew in any of the games. Even if I have problems with them, I think each of them has a purpose that they serve well. The only thing I want to talk about left are the various secrets and how those secrets tell a story. Like the first game, the secrets of FNAF 2 tell a greater plot, and the way it's told makes it one of my favorite ways a story has ever been told. There's a random chance every time you die, you'll get a minigame, showing an event in the FNAF story. Now, I've covered these in my William Afton video, and in case I want to cover the Puppet or Golden Freddy, I'm going to keep this as brief as possible, and focus on how the story is presented, rather than the story overall. The first shows one in purple kill a child locked outside of Freddy Fazbear's location. The second showing the murderer's other victims' bodies while in the backstage. The third shows the puppet having the other victims' souls be reborn through the animatronics. The last is just a free roam, so not important. Some more connections. The end of the first minigame has the puppet jump scare, so the puppet was indeed the first murder victim and possessed an animatronic. You play as Foxy in the second minigame, which could explain why he sees for the mask. And in the first minigame, a loud burping sound can be heard that when slowed down spells out save them. Food for thought. Having a story being told when you die, and very rare at that, is so interesting to me. I also like how it's in the Atari style, as it makes sense for the time period. On top of that, having free minigames have at least some story, but not a concrete order of events, makes discussions of the game really interesting. The order of when I listed the games is how I perceive the story. For all we know, the order could be Foxy, Free Roam, Give Life, Puppet. Regardless, I feel like having your own headcanon makes discussions interesting. There's no right order of events, only how you perceive it. With that said, let's wrap this up. All in all, I think FNAF 2 is one of the best in the franchise. It brings a lot to the franchise with its story, gameplay, and characters. Even with my flaws, I still think it's worth playing. Thanks for watching. Five Nights at Freddy's Free, even from release, has been one of the most hated games in the franchise. Hyped for limiting the cast of 10 from the previous game down to 1, who was apparently going to be the toughest animatronic yet. This game was theorized to be the conclusion of FNAF. A lot of people have since defended FNAF Free, which oh boy, I wish I was one of those people. Trust me, I really wanted to like this game. However, there was one glaring issue that stopped me from calling it a good game. So join me as we dissect FNAF 3 and why I believe it to be fine. Also, I know I just talked about FNAF, but I had a cool idea for an intro I could do for this video. And what do you know? Next thing I know, I'm writing a script. Oh, and also, for 100 subscribers, I'm doing a character analysis on Bill Cipher. If you are at all interested in this, subscribe. Or not, I'm not your father. With that out of the way, let's talk about FNAF the Third. Let's start off with the main selling point of Five Nights at Freddy's 3, the one animatronic to tackle with in the game, Springtrap. His design is easily one of, if not the best in the franchise. He resembles Bonnie the most, but broken down. You can see organs at the plate, and his eyes are so human. The way you deal with him is using these sound bites of a child to push him away from the office. We'll get into my thoughts on that in the gameplay section, but it's a golden foreshadowing that there's something more human with this one. He also feels more aware than the other animatronics. Sometimes you have to really look to find where he is. Kind of like when you look for a certain item at IKEA. Having this animatronic who actively hides in the cameras gives this crafty personality, and looking at him in the vents looks as if he is actively hunting you down, unlike the rest of the animatronics who look confused. I can't really talk about my love of Springtrap more without discussing this game's story, so let's do just that. I think the story of FNAF 3 is one of the best in the franchise. First, I want to bring up the setting, as unlike the first two games, FNAF 3 doesn't take place in a pizzeria, but rather a horror attraction. The story is a horror podcast crew was really interested in the tragedy of Freddy Fazbear's, and gathered multiple relics to build a horror attraction based on those tragedies. Having this group be interested in the tragedies really gives life to the world. It also makes the way you block Springtrap have a context, as it's also a way to scare customers. The Atari minigames also come back, but instead of fighting them when you die, you get them when you beat them. Beat Nights. Having it when you beat a night makes it more accessible, and it has the story more clear. The new minigames have our man in purple dismantle the original animatronics. And the last night, we play as one of William Afton's victims, now a ghost, aka the crying children. We corner Afton in the back rooms. Then he puts on the Spring Bonnie suit, revealing him as Springtrap. He then gets spring locked, which was foreshadowed in the game in the phone calls. It feels like this game has been building up to this moment, and I like that Afton suffered the same fate he put his victims through. It's one of my favorite moments of the franchise, as the whole time Afton feels as if he can get away with his heinous crimes, and he learns that his actions have consequences. Now, it sounds like I love this game, but there's one glaring issue that makes me stop it from calling from a good game. That Mekon didn't help Afton with his medical issues when he was spring locked. What the heck, Scott? Okay, I just said that because I haven't done the not fair joke in a while. Also on this channel, we stan Mekon Samiki. No, the real issue, and the thing I've purposely avoided discussing, is that the gameplay sucks. Even though the gameplay FNAF 3 isn't as bad as other games, the gameplay is the only thing that holds me back from calling it a good game. I do have positives, though. For one, it uses the cameras instead of just being one cam. Another positive is how the defenses are... The defenses like the sound bites are integrated in the story. Now, let's talk criticisms. For starters, let's explain the gameplay. To block Springtrap, you need to use audio alerts. In the other FNAF games, you add something to block the animatronics, whether it be a mask or the doors. You have to use the cameras to block Springtrap. That wouldn't be so bad if Springtrap actually listened to the audio alerts. Sometimes Springtrap will just ignore them and just continue his merry way to the office. Remember, this is how you survive. So having it sometimes not work, yeah, I'm gonna get mad. Also, you remember how I said Springtrap was the only threat you had to deal with? That was a lie. You also have to deal with the Phantoms, DeviantArt OC recolors of other FNAF characters. Basically, 5 out of the 6 Phantoms act like the Boo from Super Mario. If you don't look at them, they won't jump scare at you. You have to avoid some of the cameras. In a game where using the cameras protects you from the main threat. It's more frustrating when this is 95% of the threats. The only unique one is Phantom Balloon Boy, who basically thinks he's cringe. And if you've seen at least 5% of my videos, I think you know where I stand on cringe. I feel as if half of these characters could have been taken out of, keeping maybe Phantom Freddy and Phantom Puppet. Then it wouldn't be so bad, but I feel as if they destroy the purpose instead of conflict like in FNAF 2. Aside from the gameplay, I really like what FNAF brought to the table. Not only did it bring one of the best and most interesting characters in the franchise, but also a really compelling story. Even if I can't call it a good game, I'm glad there's people who do enjoy the gameplay. It makes discussions really interesting, and I'm glad, I'm glad seeing people enjoy something I don't. To any FNAF free defenders watching, I respect you all. Thanks for watching.